And welcome back to Career Studies. So last week we talked a little bit about how to graduate. We talked about credits. Today we're going to get into some basic banking terms. And this is a lead up into some of the financial concepts that we're going to cover. So today is just going to be talking about some of those basic banking terms and getting some vocabulary down. And then we will be talking about how to set up a bank account this week. So the essential question for today is, how does having a bank account help me manage my finances? And today we're going to be talking mostly vocabulary, but we're going to be setting it up so that you can understand the importance of setting up a bank account and managing your finances and how that can help lead to a successful future. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to identify the importance of setting up a bank account prior to graduating, and the course standard that we're going to talk about today is 13.3.11.D, and that has to do with developing a personal budget based on a career choice. Before we go any further, this is not to be considered financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And before you go and set up anything, you really should be talking to your parents. So what I'm going to present today is basic information for your education and for you to understand how some of these things work. But before you do anything, make sure that you talk to your parents. Here are the terms that we're going to be going over today. We're going to talk about a bank account, a savings account, checking account, credit card, and a checking or debit card. So let's start with a bank account. A bank account is an arrangement made with a bank and an individual, whereas that person can deposit and withdraw money. There are several different types of bank accounts that we'll talk about during this lesson. For example, there are brick and mortar banks, and you can have a bank account there. Or there are also online banks, and some of these banks don't even have a brick and mortar building anywhere. It's all online. But the gist of it is you can take your money and you can put it or give it to the bank, and they hold it for you, and then they return it to you when you request. So why get a bank account? Well, there are lots of different reasons as to why you might want a bank account, but there are three common sense reasons that I wanted to go over today. The first is it's secure. You don't have to worry about your cousin, your neighbor, somebody coming in and stealing the money you have under your pillow or under your mattress. It's secured. And the reason the banks are secured is something called the FDIC. And what that is the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. And basically what that means is the government says that if somebody steals your money, like if a bank robber comes in and steals your money, the government will give you your money back up to $250,000, and it's per account per person. So theoretically, if you wanted to have accounts in 10 different banks, and if all of those 10 different banks were robbed, you would be able to get your money back up to $250,000 in each one. So it's secure and it's guaranteed by our government. The second thing is it makes budgeting easier, and I'll talk about this in the next slide, and I'll show you what I mean. The third thing is it is more convenient. There are so many things that you can do with a bank account. For example, let's say that you want to purchase a new game, but you need a credit card to do that. And you have to go and you have to ask your mom or your dad or your grandma or somebody to help, can I use your credit card? Well, if you have your own bank account and you have your own debit card, you can start doing those things online, and you would be able to purchase things, you'd be able to set up accounts, you'd be able to pay for your phone bill. I mean, there's things that you can do with a bank account, and it's so much easier than you like carrying cash somewhere and having to purchase things, each thing by cash. So there are a ton of online apps or online tracking features that will allow you to see exactly what you spend your money on. Now, of course, you can keep your money under your mattress, and you can keep track of what you spend manually. So for example, if you babysit and you get paid $20. Well, you could write on a notebook, you could write $20 babysitting, and then you could keep track of where you spend that money. It is so much easier if you use something online. So if you have a bank account, you can set up a tracking system that will show you exactly how much you spend your money on. It's really nice because let's say you didn't realize that you spent near, a little bit over 10% of your income on games. What's not on this pie chart is eating out. And that's one of the things that surprises a lot of students when they start setting this up, is they're surprised at how much money they spend at things like Starbucks and McDonald's and eating out. That percentage is usually higher than you would expect. But the point of this is it will help you visualize where your money is going and then make adjustments. If you're spending too much money on one thing and you'd rather spend it on something else, well, this would help you do that. And it's so easy because if you have a bank account, you can automatically set this up. So every month you can just take a look at where your money is going. Another vocabulary word, savings account. Well, there's several different types of savings accounts, but the general idea is you have a separate account where you keep some money with the intent of saving it. For example, you could have a holiday savings account, and you could, every month, you could put some money into that, even if it was $10, and then at the end of the year, at the end of 12 months, you'd have $120 saved up that you could use to purchase gifts. You could have a college saving account, you could have just a general savings account, you could even have a savings account. It is never too early to start putting just a little bit of money away. So with a savings account, what it is you put money in and you have the intent of saving it. Oftentimes banks say that you need to have a certain amount of money in a savings account. So for example, with a savings account, you may have to keep in $100 or $500. There's usually some minimum that you have to have in order to keep that account open. But the good news is, because you are a teenager and you are still in school, a lot of the banks have special savings accounts where they say that you only need to have $25. So one thing that you should do when you're looking at banks is ask them, do you have any special savings accounts for teenagers or for students? Now, what's the benefit of having a savings account other than getting to save money? Well, something called interest. And what interest is the bank actually pays you a little bit of money for you keeping your money in this account. So, and I'm simplifying this a whole lot, but the gist of it is let's say you put $100 in a savings account and you come back 10 years later, you haven't touched it at all. You didn't add any money, you didn't take any money out. Well, guess what? The bank would have been paying you a little bit each month for you just keeping your $100 in that savings account. So your money grows without you having to do anything. So that's the biggest advantage of a savings account, is that you can earn interest and get more for your money just by putting it into one of these accounts. A checking account is an account that you have easy access to your money. And oftentimes with checking accounts, people use things called debit cards or checks. Now, if you don't know how to fill out a check, there are so many examples of how to do this online. So if you were to go get a bank account and you weren't sure how to fill out a check, just go online and it will tell you what you need to do and how to fill it out. So no worries with that. A debit card is a lot like a credit card in that you can use it to pay things online. But the difference is, with a debit card, you are taking money out of your checking account immediately. So if I had, let's say I had $158 in my checking account and I used my debit card and I paid $5, well, that $5 would immediately come out and go right to the person selling the merchandise. So a debit card is sort of like a credit card that you can use it online, but it takes money directly out of your checking, as you spend that money. Now, I've already started talking about this, but the main difference between a credit card And a debit card is with a credit card, you pay at the end of the month. So a credit card, if I was to use a credit card to go out to eat and to buy a game and to buy some sneakers, at the end of the month or the beginning of the month, whenever you set up your time, and which, by the way, you can set up when you first sign up when you want that bill to come. If you know that you get paid on the first of the month and you want to pay your bills on the first of the month, you could set it up like that. You could set it up for the halfway through, like on the 15th. I mean, you get to choose when you want that bill coming. Okay, so let's say you buy your sneakers, your game, and you go out to eat with your credit card. Well, at the end of the month, you get a bill and it says, okay, pay these things. If you pay all of it, no harm, no foul, you pay, you don't have to pay anything extra. If you don't pay off all of your credit card at the end of the month, the bank charges you something called interest rates. So the bank then says, okay, we'll give you a little loan. You don't have to pay this all back now, but you need to pay us some extra money to do that. And that is where you hear people say they got into credit card debt. So what happened was they bought some things and then they didn't have the money to pay it off right away. And the bank then started charging them interest, which makes whatever you bought technically more expensive. The debit card, on the other hand, you can only pay what you have in your account. So if you don't have the money to cover whatever, well, your debit card will be denied. You will not be able to purchase whatever it was that you wanted to purchase. So the benefit to that is you don't go into debt, but the disadvantage is, let's say there's something that comes up that's an emergency and you really need to pay something. Your cat gets sick and you need to take it to the vet. Well, you might not have the money right away, and if you put it on a credit card, you can pay that off. So there's the advantage of being able to do that, but then you also need to be really, really careful because a lot of teens, 20s, 30-year-olds get into credit card debt, and the reason they did that was because they spent more than they had coming in, and they thought, oh, well, I'll pay this off next month, but then they weren't able to, and that bill just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So let's summarize. A bank account is an agreement where you put money in and the bank says, okay, you can give us some money, we'll let you take out your money when you need it. A savings account, the benefit of a savings account is you can earn interest. The disadvantage of a savings account is that there's often an amount that you need to have in order to keep that account open. A checking account, that's a different type of bank account where you have access to your money right away. You can use a debit card, you can use checks. You don't get paid interest to keep the checking account, but usually there's a lower limit of what you have to have in there. So a lot of students will go with a checking account first because sometimes, they'll even say you have to have $5 minimum or $25. It's usually a low amount that you need to start. Credit card, the benefit of a credit card is you can pay for things that you maybe emergencies or things that you couldn't pay, immediately, and the bank will let you pay that off in payment plans. But the disadvantage is you have to pay more because the bank charges interest. With a checking or debit card, these are cards that you use. You can use the exact same as a credit card. You can pay for things online, but you can only buy as much as you have in the bank at that moment. You cannot take out a little loan. You cannot pay for something and think, oh, I'll pay that off over the next 6 months. You can only pay for what you have, but then you don't get charged any interest rates. And it's a safe way of making sure that you don't spend more than what you have. Again, I want to emphasize that I am not a financial advisor. This is just an overview of some things for you to start thinking about and some terms that I would like you to know for the lessons coming up. If you have any questions, you can call me, you can text me, you can email me, and you can message me directly in Schoology. I hope you have a great rest of your week.